Hello everyone, we are continuing on with our NHL season previews, team season previews, and we're going to be talking about the Colorado Avalanche. Now before we start, please make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel. I want to do this as a full-time career one day and would really appreciate it if you stuck along for the journey, and if not, no worries. Now let's talk about the Avs. And this team is coming off of a great regular season where they went 56 19 and 7 before hitting the ground for the playoffs and going 16 and 4 in that span. They followed that up with Nathan MacKinnon, their leader, of course, letting them eat kale and hummus and carrots for about 5 minutes to celebrate before getting focused on the offseason and training. I'm kidding, but of course we never know with him. And the reality though is there are plenty of big storylines for this team going into this season, and I think that the Mile High City team has got a lot to focus on. So what are those storylines and what should their expectations be for this year? Well, I think the main story to follow this year will be the loss in the offseason of multiple guys. Those are most notably probably Andrei Burakovsky, Nazem Kadri, and Darcy Kuemper. There's others as well, but these are the most noticeable losses. Now, Burakovsky went to Seattle in free agency, and with him, the Avs lose a guy that is probably a middle six forward on their roster, but will go into Seattle and go on to be a top line player probably for them under Hextall. I'm curious to see how that goes. I think it could go very well as long as Hextall doesn't just trash him with a different style of play. Overall, though, this could really look bad in the long run, not because they had to re-sign him, but just because when you lose a guy and then he puts up career numbers somewhere else, it's going to be like, man, we wish we could have kept him, but they had to sign other guys. That's the reality of it. Now, unfortunately for the next guy, this loss stings even more as Nazem Kadri is coming off of a career year in terms of assists and points, and used that to get himself a very nice long deal, that being with the Calgary Flames. I didn't expect it personally, but Kadri will of course be missed by his old team, especially on the power play where he logged the third most minutes of any Colorado player, among other things. He's a guy that fits in well as a second line guy, and he just is certainly at points a top line caliber player. He has shown it at points in his career, and I like the fact that he's got personality to him. A lot of guys are pretty mild, they don't really say a lot, they're pretty quiet just in general, but Kadri is not anything like that at all. So I think that's something fans will miss a little bit in Colorado. And I know they'll miss plenty of other things like offensive output, but there's no way they could afford to give a 30-plus-year-old player a 7-year deal for that kind of money, which is why I'd argue the cap has to grow a little faster because, in general, I hate to go on a big rant here, but there's no reason we can't have a $100 million cap. I feel like it would make us seem more professional. If that would be the right word, it definitely wouldn't. But you look at other leagues, I want a $100 million cap right now. And I know the owners are going to say that can't be done. We'll see about that. But anyway, rant over. I get it. You can't make it rise that fast, blah, blah, blah. The final of the three players that they did lose, back to this topic, is their goalie, Darcy Kuemper. Darcy was acquired in a trade with the Arizona Coyotes that seemed a little risky at the time. After all, Kuemper was an older netminder who had 1 year left on his contract before being a UFA. Yes, he was good before they got him, but there was risk in going to do this deal. It happened though, and we saw Darcy have a pretty good season with the Avalanche with a record of 37, 12, and 4 with a .921 save percentage, along with 5 shutouts and 57 starts this year, which he made pretty good noise in that time. Then the playoffs happened. This is where it got rough, as he helped this team, I think, more often than people would like to give him credit for, but in general did have some really bad games, had an eye injury, which I feel like had to play a factor in this, but he is gone, and the team has had an issue finding a true long-term solution in it, and again, this continues now that Kuemper is in Washington, and that's just how it goes. It's the way she goes, right? This means that along with losing a guy, they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do in net. But that brings us to our next storyline, which I think ties in pretty well, which is the Avs solving that solution potentially by trading for Alexander Georgiev from the New York Rangers. This comes after the Bulgarian puck stopper had a very up and down time with New York, with the low light, of course, being this most recent season. We had an .898 save percentage in 33 appearances last year. One way you could look at it was the fact that he really did get rocked at the start of the year. He allowed 11 goals within 2 of his first 3 games, and that was on 66 shots, which could very well impact his season. You also have to look at it another way. he allowed 4 goals or more 10 other times after those previous mentioned names. I'm not saying the team in front of him was a defensive masterclass by any means, but they really could care less, because when you've got Igor Shesterkin in net and a Vezina winner now, they really know that they've got this guy in net. It's no longer who's going to take over. Igor did, and now they could move on from him, and that's where it's at. Which means for Georgiev, it just might work out even better for him than I thought, because this trade could be good for the Avs, for Georgiev, in the sense that he got a 3-year deal, and it was for not crazy money, $3.4 million, I want to say, maybe 3.2, and he gets time to come on in here in net and possibly, establish himself as that guy, which also helps out the Avs, because guess what? Now you possibly have a guy that could fill in net for 3 years. Crazy how that works. And considering that the Avalanche are such juggernauts offensively, I did say I expect good things. This team isn't dominant in certain stats defensively, but that really doesn't matter, because they put up great numbers everywhere, it seems like, especially on the offensive end, and a good goalie should be able to just let them go the distance. You know what I mean? If they are scoring, 4 whatever goals it would be per game, anybody that's a good goalie in there is going to put up crazy stats, which I think is what could happen here. Now, he is younger. This thing could go downhill. We'll have to see. But like I said, if you're even average, things are going to go well. To the final storyline, though, and that is going to be Mikko Rantanen. He had a really weird year. He had a very good year if you look at a lot of things, but then you look at his last few regular season games and in the playoffs, and this is one thing I wanted to highlight. He was still, dishing out the puck like that. A very dynamic offensive player, but his goal scoring really fell off. He had 1 goal in his final 9 regular season games before just having 5 goals in 25 playoff games. 4 of those came in a 4-game span, so it was boom, 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 boom. And then there wasn't anything after that, I believe, or before that. I can't remember which one it was, but you look at the other games and you realize there's just 1 goal in 21 remaining games. That is a little worrying, because he had 6 goals in the past 34 games. If you combine those, that is going to be a problem if that continues on this year. That would mean he would be on pace for a 14-goal season, which would be the lowest of his career by any stretch of the imagination. That would be the worst thing that could happen to the Avalanche, as he is on their top line with Landeskog and McKinnon. They cannot afford to have a goal slump from him, because after losing some guys, they still are going to need top guys to perform and have those big years like that. I'm not too concerned. He's coming off of a 36-goal season. When you play with Landeskog and McKinnon, and you're also a very great player as well, you're going to find the back of the net. I'm not worried. He's going to score at least 25 goals this year if he plays the majority of the season. However, if he gets off to a slow start, that's another story. I'm confident that he's going to be A-okay, but should that be the case and he's not, lines might have to get scrambled around a little bit. They might stick with it. We'll have to see. But you need your top guys to play well. Hopefully he is able to do so as well. Regardless, he's going to get the assist, but we'll have to see. Having said all these things, though, what are my expectations for the Avalanche this season? In my opinion, the Avalanche should be thinking to repeat. There is no reason they shouldn't have that on mind. You've got a number 1 defenseman, maybe in the league. People would argue that, in Cale Makar. Guess what? Devon Tays is who he's paired with, and they are lethal. You've got McKinnon, Landeskog, Rantanen, other guys as well that are great players, and you have Georgiev in net, who I think, like I said, maybe wasn't a stud in New York, but could be good and put up good stats here. It's going to be weird. There's no way that, they'll be as dominant as stretches of last year, unless, everybody just balls out. But if you lose pieces, you'll underperform a little bit compared to last year. This team is still going to be really good, though. Make no mistake, they're getting over 100 points this season. I don't know if they'll win the President's Trophy this year, but I think that they will be top 5 in points, as long as, the Central just doesn't turn into a thing where it cannibalizes itself. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to be dangerous come playoff time, and they have just as good of a shot as most people in the league that are at that top spot to win a cup. And of course, Nathan McKinnon would love to go back-to-back. It is about legacy boosting, and at this point, you've got one. Why not go and get more? But what do you think the Avs' expectations for themselves should be this season? Let me know down below in the comments. And of course, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody, please stay safe. Have a great night, and you go with hockey, all right? Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.